Earlier, I spoke with our Major Garrett and Nancy Cordes about what is next on the campaign trail for both and about Clinton's historic victory.
She did better than expected in California. I mean, she won by, it appears, they're still counting the votes there.
It's a 56-43 spread.
As of right now, she is leading by 13 points in California, even though polls consistently showed her winning by just 1 or 2 points. This is something that her campaign did not expect all night. Last night, they were saying, you know, don't get too far ahead of yourself. This gap is going to close. She does well in the mail-in ballots. She's going to do less well with people who voted that day. But that did not turn out, it appears, to be the case. And so, yes, it sort of stole a little bit of her thunder to have the race, the primary at least, called 1 day early, but in the end it doesn't appear to have hurt her at the polls.
I think there was some crocodile tears there. I think this is 2 days of history instead of one. And I think in the long run it benefited Hillary Clinton enormously to have the conversation beginning Monday night. Hey, she's a presumptive Democratic nominee. History has now begun. This clock is now running in a way it's never run before. And I think that had an amplifying effect in California and other places. People are like, this is going to happen. This is it. We had sort of gotten ourselves into this mental state of familiarity with it. This is not familiar, folks. This is brand new. Yeah. And I think that moment began to sink in, and I think it helped Hillary.
I think you're right. It did extend the news cycle, and it also had an effect that I think the campaign didn't realize, which is that they were afraid that some of their supporters would stay home because they figured, oh, she's got it in the bag. Why do I need to get out and vote in New Jersey and California? Instead, I think the opposite happened. You had some Sanders supporters who said, well, clearly, she is going to be the nominee, so I'm going to go ahead and give her my support now.
It also lent the optic of presidentiality, certainly to that speech last night. And it's interesting, as she made the pivot and drew the line of attack with Donald Trump last night in that speech, here we see Donald Trump looking, it felt for all the world as though you know, he'd been sent to his room to a degree, reading off a teleprompter, something he's attacked Hillary Clinton for, and seeming very muted. Trump light last night in Westchester.
Trump unrecognizable, I would say. Not unplugged, not Trump light, Trump unrecognizable, completely conventional, utterly political. All of the crutches that a politician needs when a politician is in a tough situation, chief among them ignoring the controversy that's in flames all around you, which Donald Trump did, and soldier on with a largely, even by his own campaign's admission, forgettable speech. A lot of bromides, a lot of Republican orthodoxy in there, no particularly memorable lines other than I'm not going to let you down. He said that before. But it's as if he went through a crash course in politicians' school and emerged last night to try to calm and tranquilize all of the panic around him. One speech will not solve the myriad problems that Trump set in motion this last week, but at least it's a start. And Republicans have very few, if not zero, alternatives, so they have to cling to something, and they'll cling to last night's speech.
It was one time when Clinton and Trump had a very similar measured tone, which, you know, I doubt we'll see all that often, but I think he and his campaign also learned that it is hard to make a splash. This is something that Hillary Clinton knows very well, very difficult to come across as an electrifying speaker when you can't say anything you want.
But there was a halfway feel to it as well. Again, we saw Senator Kirk from Illinois withdraw his endorsement. We saw a statement put out from Donald Trump himself that, while acknowledging a controversy, did not apologize for remarks that the House Speaker called a textbook definition of a racist comment. And we did see one other thing last night. He promised a speech. Apparently, we should clear our next Monday night, roughly at 9 p.m. Eastern, when it has become apparent, you know, in discussing the Clintons have turned the politics of personal enrichment into an art form for themselves. Seeking to put on the table, if nothing else, it would appear an answer to Hillary Clinton's speech in San Diego last week.
Two ideas that have worked successfully for Trump independently. I'm a change agent. I'm completely outside the structure. Clinton is completely immersed in the structure, knows it. And then the idea that the Clintons themselves have such a long history, if not of corruption or cronyism or something that's shady, things that have constantly come up under the general umbrella of scandal. Merge those two ideas and say to Republicans, whatever your misgivings about me, and I'm gathering there are many, this would be Donald Trump saying, I am your only and best alternative to Hillary Clinton. Interestingly, this morning, Joe Scarborough on another network, who has been lockstep with Donald Trump, said, I'm no longer allowing you to put that Hillary Clinton metaphorical gun to my head. I'm putting it down. You have to change your campaign. You have to be a different Republican. Stop being a bigot. Stop being a racist. I'm nearly quoting Joe Scarborough now. I'm not with you just because you're not Hillary. If that conversation begins to really percolate in Republican circles, this is more than mildly problematic for Trump.
If nothing else, Nancy, it would seem that's a real gift for the first
Well,
lady.
look at just compare and contrast.
Exactly.
Here we go.
The first
Here we go.
lady, and I'm with racist. I mean, she has said she looked forward to these debates. It had been the idea that the debate forum had been a place where Donald Trump, made it on his own and read his own press clippings. But now this is going to be entirely different.
And here's my question for you, Major. Who do you think finally got through to Trump after days of him saying, I don't care what the rest of my party says, you got to let Trump be Trump, this is what worked for me in the primary campaign? Who was it? Was it Paul Manafort? Was it Reince Priebus who finally convinced him you have to take a different tone, you're hurting yourself and the party?
It's, I think, always with Trump an accumulation of voices. Newt Gingrich, I think, was one of them. Reince Priebus was one of them. I think Mitch McConnell was in all likelihood one of them. And one thing that Trump has shown an ability to do is once he gets enough incoming and input, then he has to decide. But nothing happens until he decides. He doesn't delegate to the campaign and say, all right, do this for me, I'll take your advice. He has to turn himself. And I think it was a lot of voices and the accumulation of all of the negative press coverage, which is probably the most important Richter scale for him. He measures the press coverage and finally saw, wow, I'm not able to get out in front of this. I'm not able to, by myself, countermand this narrative unless I do something that was, by every Trumpian definition, bland, conventional, and cautious.
Well, it was teleprompter's punishment last night, as our own Bob Schieffer said last night. Donald Trump met the teleprompters, and the prompters won.
Exactly.
Major Garrett, Nancy Gordis. Keep on trucking, you two. Keep on trucking. Thanks so much for your time.